Hello everyone, I'm Melissa Dudan. Thank you so much for joining us on Trending Vegas. As has been the case over the last couple of months, news is constantly changing surrounding the coronavirus and everything it's affected. So just a reminder that we are taping this show mid-May, so stuff we talk about today could be different as soon as tomorrow. So just keep that in mind. I'm joined by a portion of the city's social media team, including Shane Savanapriti and Natasha Shahani. I'm so glad to be sitting next to you guys.
Me too.
Next to. Okay, well, let's move right into the first topic, and that is the reopening of businesses during phase one. Here are some of the posts we're seeing online. First, this one, Downtown Container Park reopens in a few hours. Store spent yesterday restocking and dusting off the shelves. The changes for visitors on Good Day Las Vegas. That's, of course, for 8 News Now. Makers and Finders reopening with purpose and planning. And then we're seeing this a lot. This is from our very own John Curtis. Al fresco drinking is back. Haircuts are getting gotten. And Esther's Kitchen is gearing up for tomorrow's reopening. Yes, the downtown Las Vegas Arts District almost feels normal again. Then we have this, had excellent lunch today, downtown Las Vegas, and sundry others. Nacho Daddy is open for dine-in, social distancing, and phase one guidelines in effect. So a lot of good news. Now you guys have been really proactive too. Here's a current list of what's open or opening soon in downtown Las Vegas. And then the Downtown Alliance doing the same thing, looking for the most up-to-date info on downtown community. Downtown Alliance created a great list of resources with information on businesses, projects, reopening guidelines, and more. So the question to you guys is, have you guys gone out to a restaurant, gone out to a store? What's the general feel? I'm kind of seeing on social media half and half. Some are just going out there. I went to my first restaurant just a few days ago. I was a little nervous. I had a mask. The owner of the place I went to was just not wearing a mask. He wasn't serving or anything, but he was just kind of socializing. And I did notice I kept putting hand sanitizer on. But the new things that they put in place, like I had some coffee and I asked for more coffee, and instead of refilling my coffee, they brought me out a brand new cup of coffee. So little things like that made me feel a little bit more comfortable. What have you guys noticed?
I went to my first restaurant. My husband is a co-owner in a restaurant, and so I went there because we opened for dine-in, and it was almost like a very surreal experience because it was the first time I had been in any restaurant that was dine-in. And I know just some of the things that we have to take in consideration are one-time use menus, and the staff is in masks, and he was getting a lot of questions of why are booths closed? Can I sit there? There's an empty table. So I think a lot of people are not understanding maybe fully what all of these businesses have to do to be able to reopen. But it was more people not wearing masks than it was wearing masks. So I think it's, you kind of put yourself at your own risk, and then you have to make your decisions. I always wear a mask when I go out, or a face covering, just to protect people from myself in case I'm sick. I don't want to spread it to someone else.
Shane?
Yeah, on social, it's pretty split. Like you said, there's lots of people that think, you can't stay closed forever. And then there's other people that just say it's just too soon. So going out myself, it's like Natasha said, I went to order some food at a restaurant and I tried to hand back the menu, and they're like, nope, you touched it, you keep it. So I got a menu.
You're going to start a collection in your house?
Yeah, I am. It just, some of it just feels weird. It's so different because we've been isolating for so long that now going back to normal almost feels wrong. And it's just hard to know what's right, because still cases are, happening, deaths are still happening, the virus still exists, but there's so much pent up demand for people that just want to get out and do stuff. It's so complicated right now.
And I think you hit it right on the head, because it's I feel guilty, but I don't feel guilty.
Yeah.
And it's this back and forth that you feel. And I do have to applaud some of the businesses that I have talked to and kind of worked with. They are like Makers and Finders. They have a QR code for their menu now, and they're all wearing masks, they're all wearing gloves. They've situated their tables to where every other one's being seated, and now you can pay through your phone instead of having to sign with a pen. And so little things like that. I applaud all these businesses that have really had to adjust to the new normal. And I hate the words the new normal.
I
think
know.
we've talked about that before, but it lends into some other questions. And so let's go into our next topic of what many hope comes next, and that is the reopening of several of the casinos and hotels here in town. The Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority came out just recently with their new marketing video. Here's a look at that.
The world has changed, and Vegas is changing with it. So yes, things will be a little different when we open again, at least for a while. A new Vegas for the new reality. We're working to make it more intimate, with more space, and the excitement you've come to expect. So if you ever imagined a Vegas that was just for you, it's only here. And when it's ready, you'll be the first to know. The world has...
All right, guys, and then we have these from social media. Vegas, visit 6 to 8 times a year from Canada. How I miss Vegas, but we will return. Then we have from Michael, I don't want a new Vegas. I want the one we had where people weren't afraid to live. And then from this person, I can't imagine socially distancing in Vegas being fun or easy, but let's see what you come up with. Best of luck. And then it goes on and on. We have some other tweets that we'll get to. I think people are really questioning with the Nevada Gaming Control Board coming out with their distancing. You know, how are casinos ever going to get back to the way it was? Will it ever get back? And I was driving into this morning. I drive down past Fremont Street. How do you control Fremont Street? Who comes in and out? And I mean, it's not like a casino where there's doors and you control the flow. So there's a lot of questions. What are you guys seeing on social?
For one, I want to say that campaign I thought it was really smart. We've talked on this show before about millennials becoming the bigger market and overtaking boomers, actually. And they've always been looking for this more intimate experience, more intimate and social way to experience Vegas, and that campaign really plays into that. As far as how the casinos are going to look when they reopen, this past week, casinos in Mississippi and Louisiana have already opened, so that kind of gives us a preview. And like we were saying, there's so much pent-up demand. They were having long lines. Dealers are spritzing the customers' hands in between each hand being dealt. They're wiping down dice.
It's interesting. Look at this. Just on that topic, this is a casino, a tribal casino in Phoenix, Arizona. It was packed. Packed. People just wanted to get out.
There were people from here who actually left their houses at 2, 3 in the morning to get to Arizona when those casinos opened.
And we get so many messages on social about, I can't wait to come back, that I think there's the one tweet that you put up that said, I want the old Vegas. I don't want I don't want a socially distanced Vegas, but if the option is staying at your house or a socially distanced Vegas, I think Vegas is still going to win.
Natasha?
We've seen a mix of things. People have tweeted us, I miss you, I can't wait to come back. When I'm responding to those, I just feel so loved, like I'm being directly talked to. But I think there's a lot of people who are ready to come back, just say when. And there are people who've said, I'm going to wait a little bit. So I think even there it's mixed, and it's just back to the same things about dining in and going out. It's all going to be on personal preference.
But do we think that this is going to, these gaming control guidelines, do we think that this is forever, or do we think that once we come up with a vaccine and we have herd immunity that this kind of stuff is going to go away? That's my question. Yeah. I would assume, and I am not an economist by any means, but I would assume that once we develop herd immunity, the smart thing financially for us to do would be to get rid so that we can be at 100% capacity. But because there's so much back and forth and unknown about the virus, I'm questioning, is that even possible to do ever?
Yeah,
I don't know.
think it's so hard to know right now, and really more than ever, only time will tell. And and that's the thing. So maybe do we need to get used to this new normal? Probably, because maybe it won't be a new normal anymore. Maybe it'll just be normal.
Right.
I think also there's a silver lining in that these protocols that are being put in place, and even the small businesses having to figure out like curbside pickup and online ordering. I know a lot of old school businesses that were still using cash registers from the 1980s that now have embraced like Uber Eats and online ordering. So they've had to modernize their systems, and these things will benefit them going forward the same way these casinos implementing these protocols. I mean, this is not the last outbreak that's going to happen, whether it's coronavirus or something else in the future. They now have these plans in place to deal with this better should things happen in the future. So I think there's a lot of good that could come out of these changes.
Silver lining. Wow, Shane's typically not our silver lining guy ever, so wow, way to go, Shane.
I've been cooped up too long.
Okay, guys, well, rounding out the news of coronavirus-related topics is the tragic death of a Vegas icon, Roy Horn, who fell victim to this horrible illness. Here's a look at some of the social media posts about him. Roy Horn was more than a colossal entertainer. He was Vegas royalty. And we have this one from the Nevada Blind Children account. It is with deep love, admiration, and gratitude that our NBCF family remembers legendary Las Vegas entertainer and citizen Roy Horn. He did a lot for them. And then this from Governor Sisolak. Today I issued an executive order to lower flags to half staff in honor of entertainer Roy Horn, who passed away due to complications from coronavirus last week. Roy had an uncanny ability to entertain and mesmerize audiences. We will miss him greatly. And so it just goes on. And this one I thought was interesting. The creators of Tiger King are working on a new doc that examines magician Roy Horn's onstage mauling by a tiger during a 2003 Siegfried and Roy magic show. Ironically, this is all coming. ABC just did a huge special on that event. And, you know, I think just quickly on this topic, when you have someone in Las Vegas who was an icon fall victim to this, he had underlying conditions, we all know, but it just kind of hits home that, wow, I mean, people are suffering from this illness.
Yeah.
What have you guys seen on social?
That day, I think it was just outpour of love, you know, and people's memories of going to the show or photos of the Siegfried and Roy Plaza, which is right outside the Mirage on the Strip. A lot of people are walking and biking on the Strip these days because of quarantine, and so more photos of that. But you're right, like to see, sometimes you feel like we're in our own little Las Vegas bubble and we forget how much of what happens in Las Vegas impacts so many. And that was a good realization of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Siegfried and Roy, they're famous worldwide. I mean, they were on The Simpsons as, you know, characters, and everybody knows the name, but they're quintessential Vegas, and they came in that era after, you know, we started with residencies here, then we went to like the showgirl era, then there was the variety show magic era, and that kind of show hasn't really existed in a big way anywhere else in the world other than Vegas. You know, we had the David Copperfield, Penn and Teller, and Siegfried and Roy, that kind of time, and these are kind of the last of that era before we go into like the Cirque era, and then the residencies have started again. But this was like when people think of Vegas and the glitz and the glamour, you know, there's the mob, old school kind of Vegas, and then there's the glitz and the glamour Vegas, and they really represented that. And I think people respond, and you know, it's for a lot of people that still is Vegas, and
Absolutely.
so people are going to really remember, and you know, the zeitgeist with the Tiger King is really ties together with this big moment right now.
Absolutely. All right, well, summer is quickly approaching, and the question on everyone's mind is, when are the parks going to be fully operational? And what about summer camps for kids? When we come back, I'm sitting down with our Parks and Rec director to get some answers to those very questions. We'll be right back.
Papa!
Welcome back, everyone. I think if there is anything we have learned during this time is how vital parks are to our physical, emotional, and mental well-being. During this pandemic, we have been able to enjoy the outdoors with some limits. Playgrounds have been closed, so have pools, but now we start to look towards the future. I'm joined now by Parks and Recreation Director Greg Weitzel. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Melissa.
Now you are being flooded with questions. When, I'm
Yes.
sure is what you're getting every single day. So just, can you give us an update right now or where Park and Rec stands?
We're diligently working on our reopening plans, of course, following the governor's directive, but also many other directives and suggestions across the country. Our National Recreation and Park Association is providing a lot of guidance, and I've been very thankful to be on the phone or webinars every week with directors across the country, all working together to reopen our parks and recreation system.
What are some of the challenges you guys are facing? Because, you know, we talked about this in segment one, when you have open air spaces, community centers are a little different, but open air parks, can you even limit how many people are there at one time? Is that possible?
I think it's just a matter of being physically distant and keeping that so you're safe, making sure you're not, getting in a situation where you may get the virus.
What about playgrounds? Where does this kind of fall into the mix? Kids pass it, they see the yellow tape and go, when is this going to reopen?
We're really hopeful that playgrounds can open in phase 3. It's about cleaning and keeping them sanitized. We're actually working right now diligently on making sure that we have some cleaning hand cleaner there at the playgrounds, at each playground. Now that's a pretty big deal. We have over 100 playgrounds in our park system. So we're hopeful we can get them open. Here's the good news is that we have shored up what's called a Healthy Parks program.
Okay.
And for those employees who were furloughed, a lot of folks that were in our community centers are now able to go out to the parks and help us keep them clean. So we have about 40 people that are out there working extra hours on the weekends cleaning our parks. But they're keeping your parks clean and open for people to be able to use.
How does that translate into the future in terms of playgrounds? How often will the playgrounds be sanitized, or is that something you're still trying to figure out?
We're still trying to figure that out to learn how often you can keep something clean. It's also plastic, and how long will germs last on playgrounds?
Right.
And I think it's more over the same old story of keeping your hands clean when you're done playing. Make sure you go to the restroom. That's why we're keeping the restrooms open, making sure that you have a place to go and make sure you get your hands clean and don't touch your face and things.
Right.
But I think the sooner we can get the playgrounds open, the better.
Let's talk about so many things to cover with Parks and Rec. Let's talk about our summer programs. People, especially workers, are being told, okay, you can start to come back to work. We're going to get...
Correct.
But the question is, what are we going to do with the kids?
What we're doing here in the city of Las Vegas is starting what's called the Vegas Strong Academy. And it's going to be for essential as well as medical personnel and City of Las Vegas employees to start. But as soon as we move into phase 2, and if the governor opens up our community centers, it's going to be open to the public. So we encourage people to go to the website, check out the program. It's going to be from 6 in the morning till 6 at night, $75 a week. So it's very reasonably priced. There's also going to be, when we do open for the public, financial assistance available for those who can't afford to pay. And we're looking to expand it citywide as well. So right now, our very first centers are going to be Abdullah, where we have our youth program, Mirabelli, and East Las Vegas Community Center. So we're trying to open up in 3 areas across the city. Now, when the governor opens us back up as far as community centers and gyms, then we'll expand that program to even more centers.
How do your rec centers, community centers look right now? I mean, you had a lot of senior programs coming out of there, and I know people are saying, okay, when can we get back to that? Our dance class, or our cooking class, or any word on that?
Well, staff is back working on our program plan for the future because we're going to have to make some modifications. So I don't know the answers to all of those right now at this time, but we hope to in the future. Of course, bring our programming back, but making sure that we have the social distancing and make sure that people are safe who are participating.
I think a lot of people are concerned that it's going to be limited capacity when they go in. It's going to be, instead of 15 people that were allowed to be part of this group, now it's going to be the first 7. Is that unfortunately something you have to look at?
Absolutely.
And how does that affect the bottom line for Parks and Rec? I mean, that's less money coming in for the department, but at the same time, we've learned this is really essential. This is what people need to do.
Absolutely. That's a great question. And that's why grants and support from outside is going to be helpful. And we're so thankful for a lot of partners that are already stepping up to the plate to help us. For example, the Summer Academy that we're putting together, we've got multiple grant dollars to help us with education. We know the kids were out of school for almost a whole semester. So we're going to put an educational component in that program as well, not just recreation, but have an opportunity for the kids to get caught up on their schoolwork as well. And we're very thankful for multiple grants that are helping us provide that service.
Let's talk about pools, because you were here last summer, or you came right after
Oh, yeah.
summer?
I was here.
113, 114 degrees. Pools are what we live by here in Southern Nevada.
Absolutely.
Do we have any indication of when or if pools will be opened up this summer?
We are hoping that they open in phase 2.
Okay.
We are preparing those plans right now. Making sure staffing is a big issue. Make sure we have enough lifeguards and office staff and front desk staff. It doesn't just happen overnight. We need to be able to have time to make sure that they're certified and they're trained.
Right.
And so that we can open the facility safely.
And that's something that you would typically be doing at this time of year. I mean, already well into it.
January, February is when we usually start with the hiring process for all the summer. We'll hire upwards to 500 staff for the summer to help us in all of our facilities. So. Wow. Specifically for pools, we're hoping to get those open right away. We have the reopening plan in draft form right now. So the moment the governor says we can open pools, we hope to be able to move very quickly to get them open. Now, it probably won't be a day, but hopefully in a week or two, we'll be able to get the pools up and staffed and ready to for people to go out and swim.
Greg, thank you so much, and thank you for all the work you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, guys, all of this coronavirus news has more than likely taken a toll on your mental health. When we come back, we have some advice from a behavioral health expert on how to help reduce your stress. We'll be right back.
People think I'm trash, but they're wrong. Today, I'm just an aluminum can, but one day, I could be a stadium.
Welcome back, everyone. Every time you turn on the television or even scroll along on social media, bad news is sure to follow, sadly. That, on top of being forced to stay indoors and not having access to everything, has really taken a toll on all of us. Ironically, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, so I invited Dr. Jonathan Still in to help us navigate this all. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Now, you are a psychiatrist here in town.
I am, yes. I've been here for about 11 years.
And so let's talk about what all this bad news can do to someone's mental health, and they might not even realize that it's affecting them.
Yeah, I mean, news in particular, right? It's supposed to give us information, and I think we've been through other events in Las Vegas, like the October 1 shooting, where it was a very important source of information. But I think that there's a fine line between providing the comfort of knowing versus creating more anxiety in people. And I think that not knowing and uncertainty really breeds mental health issues, especially anxiety, and then further on depression.
Yeah, because you sit there and you go, well, they still don't know about coronavirus. How long are we going to have to do this? How long will I have to wear a mask? Will my child get to go back to school in August? There's so many unknowns. So just maintaining confidentiality of your patients, what's the biggest symptom you're hearing from patients?
Yeah, so like I said, I think, you could even look back to like animal models, right? Like uncertainty causes people's systems to generate an anxiety response. So we were seeing a lot of anxiety disorders. Long-term anxiety disorders definitely can cause major depression. So we're seeing, the psychiatric manifestations of just this increased stress in our local, environment and society.
What are some of the signs of that? Because I know with anxiety or depression, you can feel tired or overwhelmed, and a lot of that are just, a lot of people, even myself, would look at that and say, I'm just working so hard. I'm a homeschool teacher now, and I work full time, and I'm just tired. And I tend to ignore the signs. Is that possible?
I think a certain amount of stress is actually protective, and it's how we get things done, right? We can all kind of relate to feeling an adrenaline response when you have to get things done.
Right.
But too much of that really becomes detrimental. People lose focus, concentration. They suffer from hyperarousal, so problems with sleep, problems with appetite. So if you're not getting enough rest, your body's not resetting at night, and that can lead to further problems with anxiety.
Absolutely.
With the depressive problems, we really see people just finding that they don't enjoy things that they would normally enjoy. I'm talking to a lot of adolescents who, are struggling with online schooling, and all of a sudden good grades don't mean as much because they don't get that direct feedback from their, their friends, colleagues, and teachers. So it's really troublesome for people.
That's really interesting because I know that personally, and I don't mind sharing this, I've lost a lot of sleep, and I wake up and it's hard for me to go back to sleep because my mind is racing about what I have to do.
Right.
Did I miss anything? What's happening tomorrow? So that's really interesting. What are some of the things that people can do to combat this if possible?
I think it's really hard for people, especially with families and a lot of pressures, but you have to take care of yourself first. I really feel like making sure that you are physically and emotionally healthy is going to enable you to take better care of those around you. Parents that are used to working are now working and in the home, sometimes doing homeschooling for their children. So it's a lot of added responsibility and stress, or maybe it's just all of the things that they would normally have to do all being done a different way. So I think making sure that people take time out for themselves, engaging in really good healthy lifestyle activities like watching diet and exercise is important generally, but even more important now. And especially with all of the the emphasis on staying indoors, it's been really nice for people, and there have been several media reports on how you can engage in exercise activities both in and out of your home to ensure that you're taking a break for yourself.
And what about children, if you can speak on this, because I know that my 6-year-old, he's losing it. He's just over it, so to speak. And I feel like there is some regression happening. Is that normal?
I think it's normal, and I think I'm seeing it myself. I have a 7-year-old daughter. She just finished 2nd grade in a very atypical fashion. She just misses her friends. I think the lack of connection is more of a problem than the lack of day-to-day academic work, like in school. So I think it's not just homeschooling, it's the lack of connection for our children. So we need to figure out ways to enable these kids to connect. And this is where social media kind of comes in. I'm noticing that parents are sharing a lot of helpful suggestions among themselves about how we can improve connection between our kids with Zoom meetings. There's special texting and video messaging apps for children now that are protected, that parents are taking advantage of. But it can be a struggle, you know.
Aside from diet and exercise, that's obviously so important, how much TV, social media time should adults be taking in a day?
Yeah, so my personal feeling on this is that watching the news and a reputable news source that's providing accurate information is really, really helpful at decreasing what we don't know. But there's a fair amount of anxiety that can come from watching more inflammatory stories or more sensationalized news. So I think, most people are watching more news than they ordinarily watch. I think, it's up to every individual person about how much they need to watch. I would really suggest people taking a break from it. Also, keeping an eye on drama over social media, and I think people need to tune into themselves because if it's making you anxious or worried, it's probably not a good thing. If it helps you because it's giving you information, then keep watching.
A lot of people don't want to admit that they are suffering from anxiety and depression. So what should they do? What signs should they look for in themselves? I know you talked about lack of sleep and things like that, but who can they reach out to talk?
Yeah, so I'm the medical director for Teachers Health Trust. It's one of my roles, so I oversee their behavioral and mental health services. And one of the things that we find has been really helpful to inform our teachers and members is that we need to be more proactive than we would normally need to be in these kinds of circumstances. I think what we're seeing is that people are developing mental health problems in a less overt fashion. So they're at home developing anxiety and depression, but they aren't interacting with their coworkers who are giving them feedback, or their friends, or their other colleagues or social contacts. So we're really encouraging people to act proactively to engage in psychotherapy or counseling services if you have the ability to through an insurance or other payer, because it's really, really important to assume that this situation is going to cause anxiety before it really does cause anxiety.
And everyone needs a good vent session, right?
I think so, and I think psychotherapists, either marriage and family therapists or social workers or psychologists or psychiatrists like me, we're really adept at helping people develop coping skills that work for them. Because, one size doesn't fit all.
Absolutely. Great information. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're very welcome.
All right, guys, thank you at home for watching. Remember, you can get in on the conversation. Just follow us at City of Las Vegas and use the hashtag TrendingVegas. You can also find us on YouTube, Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon. Have a great day, everyone, and stay safe.